Welcome to the 50th edition of 805 Sports Talk, and we got a very special show this week, and we'll start it with the special ceremony that was held on Sunday to honor and celebrate the life of Arroyo Grande High School graduate Ryan Teixeira.
Was grace that taught my heart.
One of the last things that Ryan was clearly able to communicate to his mom was a conversation that he had with Jesus. Ryan told his mom that Jesus was going to give him a stage and that he was going to tell others about him. But Mom, he said, I'm going to need some help. Holly told him that Dad and I would be right there beside him. Now seeing the whole picture, Ryan's life is the stage. Holly, Aaron, and I are the voice.
While Ryan was in the hospital, I had a vision. It was Ryan walking out of there, waving goodbye. It gave me reassurance that me and my brother would get back to a normal life somewhat. And there's many things that I wanted to go and do with him. I wanted to go on that duck hunt that he so much wanted to go on. I wanted to watch him play for CMU. I wanted him to get married and have kids. But most, I wanted him to fulfill his dream and play professional baseball.
My father had the first pick in the Babe Ruth draft when I was in the 8th grade and Ryan was in the 7th. He asked me who he should pick, and I had heard, word on the street was Ryan Teixeira was the guy. So I said, it's kind of a no-brainer, you gotta get Ryan Teixeira. So sure enough, we got Ryan Teixeira, and that first practice, we hit it off. I mean, we had so many of the same interests that it was impossible for us to not immediately share a common bond.
Just one final note on the Teixeira Memorial. I was there probably 90 minutes or so, and it was, pretty physically draining, emotionally draining to see all that. And I just can't imagine what the Teixeira family went through putting all that together, and for them to put together such a great ceremony with so many wonderful speakers. The Colorado Mesa baseball team was there, so it was just great to see everybody come out for that, and just put together a really nice, touching memorial. So that was really great to see, and just shows how much of a class act that family is to be able to go through all that and endure and put together a great memorial. So that was great to see. Moving on to Central Coast sports action. We haven't seen too much this week because of the weather, but we did see some good tennis action last week, and a big one in the Los Padres League was Cabrillo against Santa Ynez, and the Conchs came out on top. We're used to seeing Santa Ynez dominate tennis in the LPL on both the girls and the boys side, but Cabrillo scored a win last week. Is Cabrillo looking like one of the better teams in that league, the best team in that league? How are the Conchs able to overcome Santa Ynez?
Well, to answer your first question, absolutely. I think all roads to the Los Padres League title clearly goes for Vanderbilt Village, judging by what I saw in that tennis match, because it's one thing to not only get the upper hand against Santa Ynez, but check this out. Cedric Kwan, Josh Ogan, Chris Ciafi, I hope I got that last name right. All three of those guys beat Braxton Johnson, the #1 player and arguably one of the tougher tennis players in the region. So that right there tells me all I need to know about this year's Cabrillo tennis team.
Yeah, I know Santa Ynez has a new coaching staff, losing Larry Popkin, who was there for almost 100 years. But is Cabrillo, maybe going to take the step to be a perennial power? Do you think, maybe Santa Ynez had an off day? Do you think this is something that Cabrillo can sustain throughout the season, or do you think the next round, when they face each other again, Santa Ynez might be able to get past them?
They truly do have a high level of focus. I know that David Riley is kind of one of those newer guys, and a guy that Cabrillo still is trying to get used to, but judging from what I saw, they got a little bit of a sense of what Riley's expectations are, and again, just the fact that they scaled this mountain of Santa Ynez. So, I mean, to me, that right there tells me all I need to know, that at the end of the day, at the top of the LPL, you should probably see it painted in black and gold.
Okay. Riley's a new coach. Cedric Kwan's been around for a little bit. Is he that? How good was he? And is he kind of leading the charge there with them taking down Braxton Johnson all 3 rounds? Is he kind of a linchpin player for the singles unit at Cabrillo?
I believe so. I mean, there's certain parts of his game that he still needs to work on. Probably his backhand save, but he's very strong when it comes to serving. He's very strong up front at the net. And another player I was very impressed with, Josh Ogan, who had told me that he hadn't beaten a guy like Braxton before, so now he's overcoming that fear of going against like a top player from the opposite side. So see if he's another one as well. And he had told me after the tennis match that he's always had his most troubles against a #1 guy like Braxton, but he overcame that in that matchup.
Okay, that'll be interesting to see if Cabrillo can kind of keep that rolling. They were supposed to play the rival Lompoc on Tuesday. That got washed out, so I think that was rescheduled to next week.
Yes.
I think they're going to be rescheduling
Just got that one. Yeah.
So we'll keep an eye on that one. Moving away from tennis into kind of all the sports, Elliott, you've been covering the Roundtable quite a bit this year. Monday was a cool event. Artie Orozco from Rigetti Swimming won the Male Athlete of the Week award, and Nancy Juarez, a runner from Santa Maria, took the Female Athlete of the Week award. What was the Roundtable like on Monday? What's going on over there?
Well, it was a big crowd. The Roundtable the last 2 weeks has had huge crowds. It was like 84 last week and somewhere over 60 this week. And they rotate the sports every week so that it's not always baseball and this season and softball getting the honors. Yeah. So this week it was swimming, tennis, and track and field were in the spotlight. But they don't eliminate anybody. They don't say you can't come. So Valley Christian brought softball players. They talked about baseball because with the weather we've had, Valley Christian just played their first game of the season last week. And then they got rained out again when they were supposed to play their second game. So, the rain has just messed with everybody's schedules. And we had a couple schools at the Roundtable. Cody Smith told me that they were going to take their Tuesday game and move it up to later that day, Monday. And Laurie Hollister called me from Arroyo Grande, said they were going to take their Tuesday match and move it up to Monday so they could avoid the rain, and they did, but everybody else got just washed away, except, of course, volleyball, which is played indoors, hopefully without leaky roofs. But every week they honor a couple kids who were standouts, and this week it was Nancy Juarez from Santa Maria. She's a distance runner. She won the 800, 1600, and 3200 all at the same tri-meet, or is it actually a dual meet against Napomo and Lompoc. So it's 3 teams there, but you can beat each of the teams individually. And now Nancy is really shy. We talked to these kids after they get their awards, and she was really shy, and she wanted to thank her coaches and her teams, and she's tiny. She's barely 5 feet tall, but she can run. Kenny, you're a distance runner from back in your high school days, so you can relate to the distance runners better. And I'll ask you about that in a second. But the other side, Artie Orozco was leading the Rigetti boys swim team, and he's more of a sprinter. If you can think in the water, they got sprinters, but he's a 100-meter breaststroke, a 200-meter individual medley winner, and was part of their 4x100 relay team that won the meet last week. And so the Roundtable voters every week, and this is an independent organization that picks athletes of the week, and they raise scholarship money at the end of the year. They give out at least 4 scholarships to the 2 male and female athletes of the year and the scholar athletes of the year. So these are some of the kids that are going to be eligible along the way for Athlete of the Year. And anybody can win it in any sport, and it's really good to see track and field or swimming get recognized, because so often in the different seasons, football kids stand out and somebody scores 3 touchdowns and everybody's impressed with that, but there are other sports going on, and the Roundtable makes sure that all the kids get recognition. But this Nancy Juarez, we've both seen her over the years. I've watched her in some of these youth races, and now she's a high school runner, and she still looks like she should be in elementary school. She's just a tiny kid, but she can run.
Actually, I'm not sure she is 5 feet.
Yeah.
But yes, in high school, I ran the exact distance, only in yards, that Nancy is running often. The mile would come first, then the 880, and then the 2 mile. And of course, with Nancy, it's the 1600, the 800, and the 3200. It's a hard combination, because not only is it 3 events totaling 14 times around a track, but you have the mile, which is have a blend between speed and endurance. And then she ran the 800, which you're running it fairly close to a full sprint for 2 laps. And then follow up maybe 20 minutes to half an hour later, she's running the 3200 8 laps at a pretty good pace. So I speak from experience, that is a very hard triple.
She did the 3200 in 12 minutes to go around that track.
Right, after running 2 races, totaling 6 laps around a track at a pretty good pace.
So she ran close to 4 miles. What was it, 3 miles, 3.5 miles of running in 3 separate races, had to stop, cool down, and the muscles can't, you can't let them get tight, so she's got to stay loose and get back out on the track. So it's an impressive feat to see that anybody could win a triple in distance races.
Yeah, I thought it was great that we got to recognize both a swimmer and a distance runner, because I don't know how those guys do it. When you get a little bit older in age, around 30, just doing a little bit of exercise for like 30 minutes can become quite a task. These swimmers are like, train every day, swimming, how many laps, how many meters, how many yards, and then, obviously a distance runner is going to be, probably a couple miles a day. I think Nancy was a pretty good cross-country runner as well at Santa Maria. So, just the recognition for the work they put in, throughout the week. They get to compete maybe once a week, have 1 meet a week, but when we get some of these score sheets and you see like a swimmer with like 5 events, I don't know how they do that. So it's cool that they got some recognition for what they did. Swimmers and runners obviously don't get a huge amount of recognition at the high school level, so that was cool that they got those Athlete of the Week awards.
Most of the local schools and Hancock College show up every week. Somebody might not make it this week. Pioneer Valley's kids weren't there and their coaches weren't there, but the athletic directors and coaches bring them along, and every one of them gets introduced, and something about them is told to the crowd, that they went 3 for 4 in a baseball game, that they won a race in a track meet, or one of the coaches talked about his kids going 6-0 last week in tennis, winning 3 sets in each of the matches, and one of the kids went like 35-1 or something like that, only dropped 1 game in 6 sets. And that's your Cabrillo kids that you were talking about. They're off to a strong start, and San Ynez is in a unexpected down season for that tennis. But so it's one way that not only can all those kids get recognition, but we can help keep up, especially with sports where some of the coaches don't call in if we're not at the game. So it helps us update our records and let everybody on the staff know that, hey, these people were there, and then we can present it online and in print, so that everybody gets to see that it's more than, at this time of year, baseball and softball or volleyball, that there's a lot of good stuff going on, and so that's one of the things that makes it so special. But it's an independent organization, and they have a board of directors, they have a Hall of Fame, It's fun to go and talk to the coaches, the athletic directors, and meet the kids. And then some of them you've already known since they were like little leaguers. Some of these kids that you say, oh wow, I remember when that kid was 10 years old playing in the minors for Santa Maria Northside, and now they're on the high school teams, and you see how far they've come. So it's a great organization. And every once in a while, here's one last point. Hancock College, of course, uses kids from everywhere, and some of those kids come down from like Arroyo Grande and the Pomo high schools, and they always make the point that we have nothing like this in San Luis Obispo County. And it's really nice to be there. Hancock College pitcher this week was an Arroyo Grande High School graduate, and it's like, well, it's really nice that you do that. We didn't have this when we grew up, and they're just the other side of the river, and yet they don't have something like that. So this is a special organization, and they treat the kids well. It's fun to do it.
Talking about high school softball, they had an interesting Saturday, Kenny. They dropped their first game of a doubleheader to Southwestern, and then they handed Mount Sac its first loss of the season, and Hancock's been playing well on the softball diamond. I think it was the week before last, they had a nice comeback win against, I think it was Ventura at home. And, you know, they're right there in the mix for another WSC championship. Talk about, you know, how Hancock's been playing. Do you expect them to contend for that title? I think they got to go through possibly Cuesta. How's Hancock softball looking?
Well, at the junior college level, I think they do have a solid chance to win the conference championship. In fact, I believe as of today, they are actually atop the standings at 8-1 in conference play. It's a pretty tough conference, a pretty balanced conference. Hancock, Cuesta, Moore Park, Ventura, Santa Barbara, I think they're all above average in terms of ability. But the big thing Hancock has going for it is they have a solid 1-2 pitching combination, which you really need at the junior college level. In fact, Hancock has often done it. Sometimes they count on just one pitcher to do at least 80 to 90% of the pitching. But
yeah, we saw when they had Katie Chenault, you know, it was pretty much just
she was pretty much
won those back-to-back conference championships, and now it seems like they're, you know, Bailey Killo, who's the Arroyo Grande High School grad.
Her ERA is under 2.
Yeah, and Shannon Peterson, I think.
And she has a solid 8-4 record herself, and her ERA is, I believe, under 3. So that really helps them. Also, they have, I believe, 4 hitters in the lineup hitting over 300. Their team batting average is 299, which is that's a pretty solid average in junior college softball. Larissa Ostrander is once again a very productive leadoff hitter. In fact, I think she leads the team in slugging percentage, which I find interesting, a leadoff hitter. but her OBP on base percentage is, I believe, 435. That's pretty solid. And she's hitting, I believe, 361 or around there. So they're pitching, hitting. Also, one thing I think that has hurt them at times this year, when they do make an error, it's not always a low impact error. I've seen at least one error this year that has led to multiple unearned runs in an inning. It did not cost them the game. They would have lost anyway if not for the unearned runs, but a close game that could really come back to hurt them.
Yeah.
That's one thing they'll need to cut down on, I think.
You covered them a lot when it was Jessica Rothanzel and Chenault, and they won those back-to-back conference championships. I don't think this team is as good as that one was with those two pieces. They both went on to play at Northridge, but where does that team rank compared to, you know, the team that won back? Where does this year's team rank to that team that won back-to-back championships?
I think it's at least comparable to the one that won the first of those 2 conference championship, the ones that did make it to the regional but went out in the first round. And no, I don't think they are as good as the team that made it to the super regional with when Chenault and Rothanzel were both sophomores. Both quality people as well as quality players, by the way.
Yeah.
But this one is, I think, a very good team, I think.
One more thing on that, you know, Sia Mamasula is a coach. Chastity Johnson's also there. I think those are two really, you know, you meet them and you kind of have a lasting impression from them. You know, Sia's kind of like a pretty hard, tough coach, and then Chastity Johnson has a high energy. How do you think they've been able to, you know, build a successful program there for, you know, around a decade? What does Sia bring to that team? How does she build that program there?
Well, she's steadying influence, obviously. They know that she knows what she's doing. I mean, I think it's interesting. After the games, when they win, you know, she'll be down there celebrating with all the players, but they know that she has very high expectations when it comes to performance, and you don't want to get on the wrong side of that. You don't want to not meet those expectations. The assistant coaches are also very knowledgeable, pretty animated. Yeah, the chemistry just seems good all the way around there through the team and the players.
Yeah, I spent a couple
coaches and players, I should say.
I spent a couple games in the dugout there. It's pretty crazy. They constantly, you know, chattering, a bunch of chants. They even usually like hang a couple things from the dugout. So it's a lot of fun to catch a Hancock softball game, and they're always, you know, or at least probably the last 4 or 5 years they've been in contention. So it's good to see that program in good shape, and they look to be contending this year. Lorenzo, coming back to you, there's been a couple big developments in the Lompoc Valley over the last couple days. You know, starting with Julian Araujo. He's announced he's going to be playing for UCSB. I think you reported that was his dream school. Talk about what Julian saw with the Gauchos, and you know how he feels about playing Division I soccer. You know, pretty much in his backyard.
He's over the moon. I mean, you always get those kids who say my dream university is Stanford or Alabama, USC, UCLA. I've never heard of a kid who said that UC Santa Barbara was his dream school. But, you know, it makes a lot of sense considering that there's such a good soccer program. And here's a soccer star from our own backyard. And, I mean, he commits on the spot pretty much. And the fact that Araujo has such a busy schedule, I mean, there's actually times in which he's actually not in school at Lompoc High, because sometimes he's in Argentina, and then from what I understood last night in my conversation with him, he's going to France sometime in April. But, you know, he's over the moon. Marco Vargas, his head coach at Lompoc High, is very excited. I learned that this is actually the very first Division I signing under the Vargas era, so a lot of excitement, a lot of build-up for Lompoc High.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize how legitimate he is as a future, you know, maybe soccer star. He's with, you know, practicing, playing, going on travel trips with the, you know, national team, the under-18, the junior team. So, you know, I think he definitely has potential to, you know, maybe one day make an impact at UCSB. Who knows where it can go from there? Maybe even if he keeps going on this trend, he might be able to, you know, crack into the lineup for the national team or something like that.
He might be Lompoc's version of Abu Danladi. I know it's a stretch, but hey, I mean, you never know.
Yeah, Abu Danladi was the #1 pick for the Minnesota franchise, so that was pretty cool. Maybe not on that quite the same path. Danladi went to UCLA, which is probably maybe a tier above where UCSB is at in terms of soccer. But you know, it would be great to see UCSB play Cal Poly, and those matches that they have, you know, they're usually a lot of fun, pretty much a sellout wherever they play, whenever they play each other. So that'd be cool to maybe cover that once Julian's, you know, playing at UCSB. So that'll be fun to keep an eye on, you know, his future. But, you know, one thing came to an end this week. We heard about Elliott Davis, Lompoc's basketball coach, is out with the Braves. I think you talked to him last night. You know, I'm sure he wasn't happy to be out of that position. You know, I think he had a pretty good 39-34 overall record over there. You know, he was always good to us on the media side. It seemed like this year they had some tough breaks with injuries and stuff like that. What happened with Elliott, you know, kind of losing that spot with Lompoc?
I wouldn't doubt that a lot of it has to deal with the fact that Lompoc High had this record, 6-20. I mean, when you're in the same neighborhood of Cabrillo High, when you have that past history of success at Lompoc High, I wouldn't doubt that going 6-20 might mean a change of direction. So a part of me feels like that was probably a lot that had to deal with it. But the issue that's at hand for Lompoc High is the amount of support Davis gained. I mean, it's one thing when you have people at the campus who voice their support for Davis, but it's another thing when Denny Duffy himself goes on Twitter and shouts his support of Elliott Davis.
A Cabrillo guy yet.
I know, a Cabrillo guy.
Right, he's not even a Lompoc guy.
Yeah.
But even at the high school level, you know, you see it all the way up to the pros and the colleges. You win, you keep your job. And they're so competitive. Not only against Cabrillo, but that whole Los Padres league. They feel they should be better than they were last year. Now, whether it was because they just didn't have the talent, whether it was the coaching, whether it was injuries, whatever factored into that, they didn't win as much as they would like to. And I could see the school deciding that they wanted to change directions. And you talked to Elliott last night, and he just was. They wanted to make a change, so he didn't knock anybody. He wasn't sounding bitter, and he didn't really want to comment other than to say that they wanted to make a change. And he was very, straightforward, and you got to appreciate his attitude. But they wanted to make that change, and a lot of times in the high school level, in the pros and the colleges, it's like national politics. Sources indicate, sources say, and you get whatever the backstory is. On the high school level, you don't. They wanted to make a change, and that's going to be the end of it.
And to Davis's credit, I mean, he was very upfront. He was very polite toward not only myself, but I'm sure with all of us as well. Davis also had a lot of honesty. I mean, before the season began, he kind of hinted that this year was going to be a little bit more of a struggle, considering the fact that he had a much younger group. And then when you lose your top big like Ben Odom, it obviously puts a damper on things for what you want to do from an interior standpoint. And then you're waiting on a guy like Trenton Carter to come back in. And especially since Carter is wrapping up his football season, it got to the point where Ryan Morgan, a freshman, had to be the main catalyst for Elliott Davis. And, that's something that at Lompoc High you rarely see, a freshman trying to take that baton and going from there. So I don't know who Lompoc will go with at this point, but it's going to be hard because you have to bring in a guy who, not so much like a young, fast-rising assistant, but maybe a guy who's been a program builder before. Somebody who knows how to challenge like the likes of a Cabrillo, maybe even a St. Joseph, or a Rigetti, which I think is on the rise under Jeremiah Rivas. So, this is definitely one of those things where all the cards, all the poker chips are on the table for Lompoc.
It almost makes me wonder if they have something lined up, or if they have an eye on somebody with how swiftly it all came down. Because he's been solid. 2 playoff appearances this year was tough, but it was kind of swift ending to what he's done over there.
If it were me, sorry to interrupt, but frankly, if it were me, I would have given him another year. I mean, it's 6-20, but it's high school sports. To me, it's called a rebuilding year. What he had to, Jeremiah had kind of a rough year his first year, and they gave him their chance full speed ahead, and look what they did. They made it. They made it into the playoffs.
I know Joe Smith has been a name that's been around the Lompoc High scene. I believe he's done 2 stints, so I don't know if he's at a point where he would be interested in taking over again, but maybe they might look into an assistant under Tom Mott's staff at St. Joseph, or maybe try to pluck away somebody from Cabrillo. It'll remain to be seen. We'll see what Don Cross and that administration will come up with.
Yep. That's all we got for our 50th edition of 805 Sports Talk. Hopefully we'll get a lot of contests in the rest of the week. We did miss some action Tuesday, but to stay up to date on everything that's going on the Central Coast from Wednesday, check out Thursday's Santa Maria Times, and thank you guys for tuning in.